Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining. We'll get started in a couple of minutes. We're going to give folks a couple of minutes to start to join here. So we'll get started promptly at 5:03. Hi there and welcome, everyone. We're going to get started in 2 minutes. That's 2 minutes. All right, we have a few people still joining, but we'll go ahead and get started. Good evening, SHPE Familia. Welcome back to the 2021 Scholarship Webinar Series. We are so excited to share with you today's webinar, Telling Your Story Through a Compelling Essay. Before we get started, some housekeeping. If you have any questions for the speaker or for myself or for SHPE, please feel free to send them through the Ask a Question box. Or also you can submit them via Twitter. Our social media team will actively be checking our feeds there as well. I'll be answering questions at the end of the session if time permits, and our speaker will be as well. If we don't get to your question during today's webinar, do not worry. A script with all the questions and answers will be posted on our scholarship webpage after this webinar has concluded. This PowerPoint deck will also be posted. And lastly, I'd like to encourage you to share today's webinar with your social networks, including Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, or Twitter. We want to ensure that everyone has an opportunity to apply to our program and has the resources to do so. So it is now my honor to introduce to you our guest speaker. Armine Karagyulyan began her career when she fell in love with helping people as an undergraduate student at Cal State Northridge, where we have an active chapter, so woot CSUN. She earned her bachelor's degree in psychology and her master's degree in college counseling and a certificate in career education and counseling from CSUN as well. Armine has worked at various college campuses as an academic and career counselor and has practiced individual counseling, group facilitation, and program development in her professional roles. Armine has used her passion for career counseling to open a career consulting agency, CareeRise, in order to motivate, educate, and guide young adults to recognize their full potential. You can follow her Instagram with best tips at CareeRise_. That's at CareeRise_. So without further ado, I'll hand the reins over to Armine. Armine, take it away.
Thank you so much for the wonderful introduction. Hi, everybody. This is Armine. Thank you for joining me today. I'm happy to share some of my knowledge about career or essay writing tips and scholarship tips for you all. So let's get started. So these are some general preparation tips, regardless of what kinds of prompts you have when you're writing a scholarship essay. You want to make sure you reflect on your past experiences and challenges, just in general, to have those examples at the forefront of your mind when you're writing your essay, because a lot of times they're going to be asking for what kinds of experiences you've had, what challenges you've overcame. So you want to be able to reflect on that before starting your essay. Identify the main points that you want to include in your essay. You might have a lot of things, a lot of personal stories that you want to include, but definitely have some of the highlights that you want to include, and some specific examples that you want to write about in your essay. You want to start with an outline. I usually encourage an outline just so you can write out the main points that you want to talk about, and then which examples you want to share for each main point. That way, you kind of organize your thoughts and you have a nice structure in mind before you even start writing the essay. Other general tips: you want to answer the specific question or prompt. So if the scholarship essay, and in today's case, we're going to talk about specific prompts that you all have to answer. If the essay has a specific prompt, you want to make sure to answer the question. Even though you're telling a story, you still have to stay on topic. And after you write out your response, I recommend going back and reading the question and making sure that your response actually answers what they're asking for. Provide specific examples in your story. So when you answer the prompt, you want to also back it up with an example. And be original. So you want to avoid generic answers. So for example, if you were writing an essay and you're talking about like wanting to get into the medical field, for example, most people are probably going to say something like they want to help people and that's why they're getting into the medical field. And that's really generic, and the people who are reading these essays have heard that same story many times. So I would say have an original twist to your answers as opposed to sticking to the generic ones. Be genuine also in your responses. It's really important to show your authentic personality within your essay, because they're also looking to see what kind of person you are, in addition to all the other things that they're looking for in your essays. You definitely want to stay within, if there's specific directions in terms of how many words you can have. So I was told that your essays for the scholarship are 250 words max for each prompt. That's pretty much on average 1 page double spaced, or if you're doing single space, it's going to be about half a page. You definitely want to follow the directions, because part of what they're looking for too in these kinds of essays is if you can say, follow the directions and stay within the requirements of what they're looking for. So definitely make sure you're sticking to those points. And proofreading, of course, making sure sentence structure and grammar and everything is correct, because they're also looking to see if you can write effectively. So these are general tips, and then we'll talk about right now the specific questions that you have to answer within your essays. So the question 1 was, summarize your life experiences and challenges that have impacted your path to higher education. So I would say for this question, you probably want to focus on one challenge, maybe two if there's two specific ones you really want to highlight, but because of the limit of 250 words, I wouldn't recommend going over two challenges. But if you stick to one, something that's been like a highlight for you that's really shaped your personality, that would be really good. So you could really get into the challenge and talk about what you've learned through that experience, because essentially that's what they're gonna want to see. The point of the question is not to have a list of challenges. It's more to show what you've learned through that challenge, what skills you've gained, and then how the scholarship would really help you overcome the challenge. You want to divide your answer into 3 paragraphs. So you still want to, you want it to flow nicely. That's why sticking to the same structure of any kind of regular essay where you have an introduction and a body and a conclusion. That structure will help your ideas flow in a nice way. So I would definitely say you want to think of your answer, even though it's not a formal essay, it's answering one prompt, you still want to structure it like you would do any other essay. In your conclusion, you definitely want to connect it to the scholarship, because the point of this essay is to seek the scholarship, to seek financial assistance. So definitely wanting to connect, okay, I experienced these challenges, this is what I learned from them, and this is how the scholarship will help me overcome the challenge. So the goal of this question is to determine how you've grown through the challenge and what you were able to overcome and what skills you've gained. So this is kind of like a generic recommendation of what you would want to include in each of your paragraphs. So in paragraph 1 for your intro, I would recommend briefly describing the challenge. There's no need to get into too many details, especially since it's a personal story. You don't really have to share too much. You just want to share the essence of what your experience was and what kinds of feelings and struggles you went through. State how the challenge impacted your path to education, because they're specifically asking how it affected your educational experience and how it affected your success as a student. So definitely talking about, this was a challenge, this is what I experienced, this is how it impacted me as a student. And then in the second paragraph, getting a little bit more into, if you're still going through the challenge or if you've sort of overcome it already. What steps you're taking to overcome it, what resources you used, and how long it's been going on in your life, or how long it went on until you were able to kind of find a way to deal with it. And then in your last paragraph, which will be your conclusion, this is where you can talk about what skills you gain. So like some generic skills that you probably want to highlight in your scholarship essays would be things like resiliency, strength, determination, those kinds of things that usually people gain from a challenging experience, and that's what they want to see when they're reading these essays. So talking about the specific skill that you gained from this challenge, and then transitioning to how a scholarship would benefit you, how it connects to your challenge, how it would help you overcome it. Okay, so you definitely want to make sure to connect the dots in this prompt as far as the challenge and the scholarship going hand in hand together. And so this is a sort of a generic example. I wanted to use an example that is fairly common, where many students do have to sort of deal with family and financial responsibilities while they're students. So I use this generic example. So let's say this was a challenge that someone was talking about. You would state it as, one significant challenge that I faced as a student has been balancing academic and family responsibilities. And then you would go on to explain a little bit more about what this specific situation was. Describing what you've learned would sound something like, this experience has taught me the importance of time and money management. I have learned to become more resilient and to use my long-term goals as motivation to overcome daily challenges. So describing the skills like the time and money management, the resiliency, and the motivation in this point. And then what you are doing to overcome the situation. So continuing to use my long-term goals to fuel my motivation, seeking support from family and friends, maintaining clear communication with professors, those kinds of things, so they could see like what steps you're specifically taking. And then the transition would sound something like, I strongly believe in my ability to reach my career goals. I write to you to seek financial assistance. You want to be clear that you're seeking financial assistance because it is a scholarship essay. And as a counselor, I've seen sometimes, what happens is it's a little uncomfortable to ask for financial assistance, and that might be something too that you might feel hesitant about. But reminding yourself that this is completely okay in this kind of setting because you are asking for a scholarship. So being clear and confident in the fact that you're seeking the assistance, because then you're going to go on and explain that this financial assistance is going to support my goals of X, Y, and Z. You can clarify what your goals are after that. I believe the scholarship will help me by giving me an opportunity to focus on my academics and have time to engage in experiential learning, such as internships. So in this particular example, if you were busy working full-time and busy being a student full-time, you might not have enough time to now do an internship related to your major or get involved in other things that are related to your major because you're already, your week is full with work and school. So having a scholarship would help you reach your long-term goals because now you'll have time to really engage in internships and things related to your career. So this is just a generic example of how you would want to kind of word some of these things. Question 2, discuss your educational and career aspirations as well as your ability to complete and achieve these goals. So the 3 key points to include in this would be what you plan to do when you graduate, was it graduate school or entering the job market, or what your plans are, how you plan to achieve these goals, and how a scholarship would help you reach these goals. And the goal of this question is to determine whether you have clarity on your goals and how you plan to reach them. So an example here of how you would structure your paper. You would state in your first paragraph your major and your specific area of interest within your field. You would clarify your academic plans while you're in school because it's asking for your educational aspirations as well as career aspirations. So like what you're planning to do while you're in school and a timeline, maybe it's just a general timeline of, by next year, I would like to accomplish these things. State your goals after graduation. They want to see what your long-term career goals are, what particular occupation you want to enter, and then definitely talk about your passion for the career because they want to see that you're excited about getting into your career path. So that's really going to show more of your personality and help them get to know you better. So definitely highlighting your interests and your passions for your field. And then state how you plan to achieve these goals in your conclusion. What steps are you going to need to take? And why this is meaningful for you. So then you can transition to maybe a couple of sentences of the scholarship can now help me reach these goals because I will be able to obtain an internship, do research with the professor, X, Y, and Z, whatever you're gonna be able to do if you get the scholarship. And then the question 3 was, please describe your interest in your intended major and how your interest in the field developed. So for this one, the points to discuss would be how you decided on your major, what your passion is for your field, and your goals within your major. Really, the point of this question is to learn more about your interests and your level of self-awareness because they want to make sure that you're reflecting on yourself, right? Like there is a reason why you're in this major and you're aware of why you selected this major. So paragraph 1, this one I think maybe 2 paragraphs might be good for this, but this is just generic. You can definitely make it 3 paragraphs or 4 if you needed to, but I would say just like a general structure in paragraph 1, you would state your major and then describe how and when you decided on this major. If there's a particular story, like you had a particular experience and you got introduced to your major that way, and you were inspired by a particular person, those are really good kinds of stories to include in this question. So how you were inspired to declare this major, that would be really good. And then in the second paragraph, you would discuss your future. So it would be like past and present in one paragraph, future goals in the next paragraph for this question. And then question 4 was describe your volunteer or community experience with SHPE or other organizations and any internships you have held. So key points to include in this question: clearly state your volunteer internship experiences. Definitely state like this was the position I've held within this particular organization. So that is very clear to them what exactly it is that you did. You want to describe what activities you did in that role and the skills that you used and the knowledge. And then how have these experiences helped you grow personally and professionally? That's really the point of this question, is for them to see how active you've been in the community and what you've gained from those experiences. If you've had multiple internship or volunteer experiences, I would say just, talk about the most impactful ones, narrow it to 2 to 3 experiences maximum, because it shouldn't be like a list of all your experiences. It should be 2 to 3 impactful ones, so then you could get a little bit more in depth into what you gained from each position, so they can learn more about your personality, your skills, and things like that. So paragraph 1 would be a little bit more like clearly stating the positions you've held. Make sure to name the position and the company. And then paragraph 2, for each position, you want to describe what you did in your role and what skills you've gained. And then in the last paragraph, describe how your involvement experiences have shaped you and helped you grow. Okay, so the common theme with most of these questions is going to be like what skills you have, and what your personality is like, who you are as a person, and what your future goals are, and how it all kind of ties together. That's essentially how each of these answers should flow: past and future, and how it all goes together, and then how this scholarship is going to help you reach those goals. Okay.
Thank you so much, Armine. I think those are some really great tips, especially when you talk about timeline and really your essay is explaining the thread through all of them and where the scholarship fits in your timeline. So thank you so much for that. We do have a few questions, and the first is from Christian Campos, who asked how they can connect with you. And so if you want to share that Instagram, or if you have a web page or something that you want to share, please just let folks know the easiest way to get a hold of you.
Sure, thank you. So I have a website. It's www.CareeRise.org, and it's spelled CareerRise, CareerRise.org. And there's a page on there where it says connect with me, and you can write a message and I'll receive it. My email is on there as well. Everything is on the website. And then my Instagram that was mentioned earlier, I'm checking Instagram daily as well. So CareerRise_.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. All right. So some of these are logistical, and I'll answer the ones that are logistical to the scholarship. And Armine, if you can answer the ones that are content-based, if that works. So the first question in regards to the scholarship comes from Juan Diaz. And Juan's question, I think I can take this one because it refers to a scholarship component that is outside of the essays. And that is, what is the difference between career goals and career aspirations? And that is one of the scholarship essay questions does it have career goals or aspirations? Armine, can you click back and see?
It had career aspirations. I think it was question 2. Yeah.
So the important thing there is to actually look at the instructions, because that second question is supposed to be one sentence because it's a maximum of 10 words. And so the goal is that you communicate with the reviewers. What is it that you're looking to do through your education? What is the career that you're pursuing? So that one we didn't include because it's not really an essay question. It's just articulate in one sentence what your career goals are. And so that's why those are 2 questions that may seem similar in nature. Feel free to expand on it in this question, but keep it to one sentence in the other response. In fact, you'll have to because the form won't let you go longer than 10 words. The next question is, if we are still experiencing a hardship, what should we talk about? Only the fact that you're still dealing with the challenge, or how do we frame that?
I would say just describe the challenge briefly and talk about that you're still dealing with it, but if you can connect how the scholarship would help you overcome the challenge, that would really, I think, help you stand out. Because, you know, when they're giving out a scholarship, they want it to be to someone that it's really going to make a difference for. So if you can find a way to connect, the scholarship can help me because, you know, overcome this challenge by X, Y, and Z, then I think that's what you should really focus on in your response.
Wonderful. Thank you for that answer. Somebody else asked a question about, if I've never been able to find time to volunteer, but I have meaningful paid work experience at a nonprofit, could I write about that? Logistically, yes. Armine, I'll let you talk a little more about it.
So if logistically, if like it's within the rules, then yes, totally. And then on the content, and yes, regardless if it was paid or volunteer, really what they want to see is your level of involvement and what you've gained from those experiences. So like the pay doesn't even matter. You know, they just want to see that you were doing extra things that are outside of your like regular responsibilities of a student. If you're doing extra things, going that extra mile to gain more experiences, that's really what they want to see. So don't worry that it was paid. You can definitely talk about it, and just don't even mention whether it was paid or not. I don't think that's necessary. I think just talk about what you've learned from the experience.
Yeah, I think that's really good feedback, Armine. I don't think it's worth mentioning that it was a paid versus unpaid experience. It's more about the character and leadership skills that you developed while you were there. The last question that we have, well, one is a logistical one, and that is, would your reviewer of question 3 have read question 2 or vice versa? Your applications are reviewed by 2 independent reviewers, and they review your entire application supplement. So that includes your essays and your letter of recommendation, as well as your resume. So they will see your entire application package. So they will, it's not like you'll have one reviewer read one question and another read another. So the answer is yes, they will. It would be the same person, but it's multiple people reviewing your application. And actually, I think, well, the other question was from Mateo de Leon. Armine, if you can check what I typed in the chat, make sure that's correct.
CareeRise, yes, that is correct. And the website, yes, perfect.
Wonderful. Somebody else asked if I could throw it in the chat. So if there are no other questions, I do want to sincerely thank Armine for her time in putting this together. I think this is really helpful. If you all have a chance to share the webinar with your friends, at the very least, share the file of the PDF, because the breakdown and framework that she provides for each of these essay questions, I think will really result in a successful application. So thank you so much, Armine. Thank you for everyone watching us today, and we'll see you next week. Take care, everyone.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.